All right. Well, we got probably about 30 here, and a few trickling in. So we got some. Hey, Dale, just a minute. Dale, I got to put you on the speaker here. And
Let's come on in and get seated. We got Dale on the phone. We're going to start going pretty quick.
I'll put you on the speaker here, and we got some board members and all that. Hang on, buddy. All right, you're on.
Okay, let me talk. It's good to talk to the dignitaries. We sent out a printout yesterday. Is there anybody that hadn't seen that?
You don't think so?
Everybody seen it?
I think so.
All right, now, this is kind of unique and unusual, but the bill was introduced, I believe, on Monday, printed on Tuesday, and this is a fact, this part, the hearing is tomorrow. That's a rather quick turnaround. The other issue is, we've had numerous calls, as you can imagine. This is contradictory to the Supreme Court order last year. Because remember, they said that the LOB and the capital outlay had to be funded, and then they referred the base amount back to the district court. This, guys, applies to the current year. And if you have an opinion on that, there's some in the room that will not be able to spend all their LOB if they lose this. Now, who that is, all depends on delinquency and all that sort of thing. But for some, it's $39 million in total. And they have overestimated state revenue, and they've underestimated the effects of the tax cut, which caused it significantly. They're looking anywhere to cut. But let's take, for example, let's take Reno County. Now, they're high rollers over there. And take the distinguished gentleman from Bueller. I believe in Bueller that he'd lose $205,000. Now, think about this. You lose $205,000. You say, well, I'll just have to cut my LOB $205,000. No, not necessarily. If you don't spend the LOB, you lose state aid again. You'll lose more because it will prorate it. The proration rate would be, what is it, 482 or 448? Remember? Just a minute, let me verify one thing. The proration rate is 482. The proration rate would be somewhere in the vicinity of 8%. So if you didn't spend your LOB by $200,000, we'd have to reduce the prorated amount 8%. Now, if you spend all of it, that's no big deal. But if you have an opinion on this, you need to contact your senators yesterday, because the hearing is tomorrow. And if you can cut $39 million and your share of it and smile and love it, and then do nothing. And if you got a problem, you need to do it quickly. Let's stop and talk about that, because that's significant. Any questions? Concerns? Or do you support it? Well, whatever you your opinion is, if you don't express it, whatever, if you're going to express it, you need to do it. You need to do it in the very, very near future. And I know one senatorial district, the superintendents got together and they're all calling their senator separately. And then they're going to have a board member call them separately. So he'll get about, in that part of the state, he'll probably get 15 calls at least, maybe 20. Because he'd have that many districts probably, because he have 4 counties. Anyway, any other words of wisdom? Does Madam President, oh, she's not there though. She's at the hutch. I thought maybe Sue was there. Any other comments or questions or words of advice? Oh, is she? Sue, you got any words of wisdom?
I'm speechless. That's rare.
Amen.
You hear that?
What? Yeah, I heard her, but I didn't believe it. She has great wisdom. She's our president. But guys, the point is, if you got an opinion, you don't express it now. I had one call a little bit ago, and he says, what was the term he used? I told you a minute ago when he called.
I don't remember how he said it.
Anyway,
He was not happy.
he was really ticked off. Said, I can't handle this. He said, and you know, I can be pretty darn honoring. Now, said, Dad, now, they told me they weren't going to cut it, and now they're doing it. Well, yes, true. So, anyway, any other questions on that one? Or comments?
Yeah, we got
All
one.
right.
Dale, this is Bill Hagerman, one who is never speechless and who has always got something to say, as you know. But anyway, my comment was there are, if I counted right, and I could do simple math, but maybe can't count, but about 230 or 32 districts are going to receive this budget cut in one form or another. Is that about right?
The answer would be, this will be awfully close.
Yeah, okay, well, whatever it turns out to, whatever it turns
You
out
are
to
correct, Bill. It'll be 230 districts.
well,
231 districts going to take that hit.
okay, well, it looked to me like there were some that got all of it taken away. Is that because, well, why was that? Some of them got 100%. And I did
All
notice
right.
that.
Okay, now, Bill, follow me on this. Good question. Right now, the 81st percentile is $116,700.
Okay.
And they changed the law. It's weird how they did this. To use the assessed valuation per pupil of the district that has the highest total valuation. That's Shawnee Mission. So anybody between $116,700 and about $108,000 something, whatever's on the printout, they're going to go to nothing.
Well,
They're going to go to zero.
it looked to me like one of those was Blue Valley 229. Now,
That's right.
it seems to me like that ought to help the cause here because of the influence that they may have over there. And the second, but that's just a comment. The second thing is, I think you're right in that this needs to be explained to senators that represent all of us, because I think this comes down to a personal integrity issue, if anything else. As you already said, we were told we weren't going to be cut, and yet here we are. Proration is supposed to have been fixed, and yet here we are. I don't care what you call it. It's a proration of LOB. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're on target. And no, I want you to know this, Bill. Shawnee, Blue Valley started on this yesterday afternoon. They started getting with it yesterday afternoon. Because I talked to Trigg, and he was wound tight and was doing well. And but it'll take more than him.
Yeah, that's true.
It'll take more than him. Wichita lost the most, 3.9 million. But you go down the list, most of that is all proportional.
If you look at the numbers, 35% of the dollars cut are in 4 districts: Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission, Olathe, and Wichita.
But they got about 35% of the enrollment too. Not quite, but they're close.
So, I mean, it makes sense, but when you look at it in those terms, that's where a lot of the money is.
And Shawnee Mission and Blue Valley was going to zero. The printout showed $151 for Shawnee Mission. That's just because we didn't carry it enough places. We'd have carried it 6 decimals, why it'd been zero. But bottom line is, nope. And there's some will not be able to spend their LOB. They won't have the cash. Anyway, I think that's significant, and a response needs to be in the very, very near future, because it's going to be a hearing will be in the committee on Thursday.
Dale, this is Steve Knoll in Hillsborough. If part of our response then is, I'm looking at your spreadsheet on column 2. That's the equalization rate that was basically mandated by the Supreme Court last spring, correct?
Yeah, yes. That's what the court said is funded.
Right.
And that's what you're entitled to. And what they did, they cut the 81st percentile down to a lower number, but the court didn't specify the exact LOB percentage. What they said is the law is okay if you fund it. And then they are choosing here not to fund it. And they're doing it by cutting the 81st percentile to a lower number. And it's weird how they got there. It's a number that with the most valuation in the state, not per pupil. There are a lot of districts got more money per pupil than Shawnee Mission does. But they dropped it down, and we're, in essence, them, and Blue Valley's right in there. Blue Valley got down. They don't have much either. Because Blue Valley and Shawnee Mission's amount per pupil is about the same. But I can tell you, Trigg was working on it. He started yesterday afternoon. And I hope everybody else is too. Good question though, Bill. Any other? Yeah, Shawnee Mission loses $4 million. Yeah. Yep. This is Senator Masterson's bill. He's the father of it. I don't know. Is there anybody that has him as their senator?
Doesn't that mean it's Charles Coe's bill?
What's that?
We missed that.
Probably not what it means.
Oh, I heard the 1 4-letter word. We heard that part. Okay, just a few others. I want to tell you one more. Let me see if I've got it. Yeah, that is kind of weird. And it's one that could easily slide through, and it's a nightmare. But what they did, they took a lot of the stuff the state board is doing on teacher licensure and put it in statute, which is not necessary at all. Sorry, rule reg, but one of the things they did, this is Senate Bill 70. And what it says is, when you renew your license, each time you renew it, you have to go get fingerprints. And I called them up, the revisor that wrote it, and I said, why would we do that? I said, we got their fingerprints on file, and we could run them through if we need to. That's not a problem. And I said, why would you make all the people, when you renew your license, go get fingerprints again? He said, because that's the way the person who wanted this bill, what he wanted. It's Senator Smith from over at Johnson County. The other thing that's in that bill I'd comment on, now think about this, it's kind of silly, I think. Any person who has been convicted of any offense that's specified in subsection A and B, and that's all the things that a teacher can lose their license for, anybody that does that, they have to notify us. They used to have the county attorney notify us that they're convicted. Now what they're doing, they're placing that the responsibility of notifying us they've been convicted of one of these crimes on the individual. Well, a person been convicted of rape, felony of some kind, what do they care about a misdemeanor charge of reporting to us? But anyway, that's what they got. And it's anybody and everybody. There's like, I don't know, there's two pages of all the things that counts you can lose your license for. Murder, second degree, manslaughter, sexual battery, involuntary manslaughter, it just goes on and on. And indecent solicitation of the child and a felony under certain statutes. Bottom line is, though, the individual has to report it, not the county attorney anymore. County attorneys didn't want to do it. That's Senate Bill 70. They also put a special provision in for districts that are innovative. About all our districts are innovative. There's just a few that's designated. And they're required to, all their people has to do fingerprints. But in addition to that, there's another section been added. New. Any person who is employed by a school district in a position with direct contact with students has to submit a fingerprints. And you'll have to run it through the KBI. That's all your custodians, your cooks, anybody around kids, you're going to have to get fingerprints and send them in. That'll be some extra money for you because a lot of those people you don't pay very well, and to do that, you're going to have to pay for it, in my opinion. Unless you're paying big salaries. Senate Bill 70. Senate Bill 2, I'd mentioned briefly. That lets you give teachers under 10 years of experience a 2-year contract, and if they're over 10, you can go up to a 3-year contract. I'm not sure what that's about. Why? Senate Bill 3 is another one. Is there anybody in the room that contracts for bus service? We'll forget that one. They're going to make anybody contracts for bus service, and we'll probably be next, but that they're eligible for unemployment during the summer if you contract. Let's see. I don't know. That isn't that important. There's a bill, Senate Bill 8. They may do away with the school audit team. They never did have one really anyway. They switched them around. The Senate Bill 32 is the efficient operation of schools task force, which is kind of silly. It's 4 legislative leaders make appointments, and the commissioner, and they review efficiency. If they do this, and this bill passes, guys, this will be the 3rd efficiency study we've had, not counting post audit. We also, in Senate Bill 33, we got a bill that we're going to study the standards. We have a Kansas Education Standards Study Commission. Well, that's a state board matter legally, but that don't make any difference to them. They have a committee going to review standards. And we'll get to another one. There's another bill in there related to the standards now. The tests are about to develop. You're going to take pretty soon. And we'll get to that one. And it's a Senate bill we'll have here in a minute. It came from Sue Gibbons' buddy. Do you want to tell them who your buddy is? Do you want to tell them who your buddy is?
Is that the guy who loves me on email?
Yes.
Yeah. His initials are D.
We'll get that in a minute. Senate Bill 60. Now this is weird too. It's amazing all this experts we got. Any student as a resident of a school district will be permitted to participate in any activities offered by your school district, regardless of whether such student attends a school in such school district on a full-time basis. Nothing in this section shall be construed to permit a student to participate in an activity if such student is otherwise prohibited from participating for any reason other than attendance, if such student is prohibited from participating because of truancy. Any student participating in high school activities shall be allowed to participate for 4 consecutive school years, regardless whether such student graduates prior to the completion of the 4-year. So if you had a brilliant student, and that'd be your kids, and they graduated in 3 years or 3.5, still participate in school activities. That could be quite interesting. Also, I believe it could affect some homeschool kids. Well, I tell you what, a lot of them have already done that, and they started. Senate Bill 67, guys, is, this is the one that, Sue, that your buddy introduced. He's reading out Sue's buddy, by the way. It goes back to the standards back in 2009. It requires us to give tests on the old standards. And I want you to know that to do that, it takes 2 years to do that probably. The chances of getting a waiver from the feds to go back to those old standards and new assessment is somewhere between 0 and a -1, in my opinion. And KU, that old test was strictly multiple choice. And so that engine has been disintegrated, doesn't exist anymore. And the test questions have all been made available to you for practice. The bottom line is, to do this, you got to start all over from scratch. It would probably take 2 years and $1 million+ to do that. But he wants to go back 6 years ago. And I think we've covered most of the Senate bills of significance. Let me look here just a minute. We don't care about the Ethics Commission. They don't believe in that over there anyway. Here's one that would affect you, and I don't suppose it'll make it, because we are not very popular among the poor in a statewide basis. From January 1st to 10 to January 1st of 16, the minimum wage would be $7.25. It goes up $1 for each year. So in January 1st, 2018, it'd be up to 10.25. How many people you're paying now under $10? Anybody? It'd be probably cooks or parents. Okay, on the House side, here's an interesting, Representative Brunk has got a bill. The law says now if you protest your taxes, well, you go ahead and get it and you have to pay it back. Now think about this. If someone wants to protest their taxes and so forth, it says a protest of assessment of taxes made, the county treasurer may not distribute the money. Now, this puts a lot of pressure on when you do that. Think about this. Who in the group has got one taxpayer that pays a lot of taxes to you, the district?
I do.
Would it be the refineries,
Yep.
Sue?
Yes.
All right. Say the refineries got together and decided to protest their taxes. They could pretty near bring you to your knees if the county had the authority to set on the money.
Right.
And so it moves, then it puts a lot of pressure on the county commissioners too, because they wouldn't get the money, to agree with the protester. To get them, we'll protest our taxes, they'll withhold money, and that'll put pressure on the county to agree with us. And give us a cut in taxes, and we'll give them the rest. Anyway, that bill, the reason the law is like it is now, the governmental units got their money, and then when it's settled, you got it back, was to keep companies from doing this very thing. And it'll happen. the big outfits like oil companies, gas companies, people like that.
Yeah, but Dale, then I wouldn't lose 230,000 on my LOB because I wouldn't be wealthy anymore.
Well, that'd be true, but you'd still lose about that much because it wouldn't change your LOB. You'd still lose it because if they cut the appropriation, you might get next. If that's the case, Sue, you might lose 300,000.
Oh, I am.
Because
I am because of my audit. I forgot to tell you that.
all right. House Bill 2010 requires that let's see, I was trying to see, it has to do with auditing, naturally. I don't know what it says. May report in writing outside of regular, it lets them report outside of a regular school meeting to the post committee, the Joint Committee on Information Technology. Audits, they don't have to wait for a committee meeting to send out the information. Don't amount to much. 2016 expands the people that's authorized to decide whether a student can go back to participating in sports over a concussion. I think it broadens it to include, I think now it's anybody covered under the Health Care Provider Act. And I think that includes MDs, DOs, DCs, and maybe one more. Anyway, they can sign off a kid going back. Okay, that's worthless. 2027, the bills came out of the Efficiency Committee. They introduced them in both houses, so they're redundant. And this is a bill that requires this might pass. It requires each district to adopt and implement a plan to address child sexual abuse for each of its schools offering any of grades K through 6. You have to provide training and education for teachers. You have to have training and education for students. And so, and everybody believes in that and wants to prevent that. But for a little kid in the, little kindergarten teacher gives them a hug or whatever, they may misunderstand it and all that. So anyway, you would have to prepare a plan, and you would have to have training for teachers and training for students. That's 3034 is on negotiations. And the bottom line in negotiations, all the organizations got agreement on the negotiations. I think that's all been sent out. It's primarily limited to money-related issues. Tax credit scholarship 2035. They're going to amend that bill, and one of the amendments is to strike out that, because you have to do it anyway probably, that for a person to sign up for this law, parents got to agree to not ask for special ed services. And I don't think they can probably do that, and they're going to strike that. And the other thing they're going to do is they're going to allow the SGOs, those scholarship granting organizations, they're going to allow them to take 10% of the money for administration. And they've introduced the bill at 5%, but they're going to kill that bill and start over a new one. I think the bill number is 2133, but the rescission bill, all the cuts, is going to be discussed today, I believe. their goal is to get the rescission bill through by the end of the week. Well, and I wouldn't put any money on that, because there's going to be lots of questions when you get to the floor. Lots of questions on that. So, anyway, that'll be another issue. 2070, that don't amount to anything. It just clean up on a statute dealing with taxes. There's a bill on sales tax exemptions, and I want to mention this a little bit. It affects you. The exemptions on sales, they start out with exemptions and they letter them A through Z. They got so many, they went double A through Z. They kept coming in, they kept improving them, so they went to triple A through Z. And now we're up to 4A, and we're up to 4Ks. And this one, which won't make it, it provides a back-to-school sales of clothing and clothing accessory and equipment that are of $300 or less on a person's tax return, $100 for instructional materials such as school supplies, and $300 for a software computer. But it cannot, the total can never exceed for the family $2,000. So it's tax exemptions for those folks. And what they do probably is payment as a rebate on the tax return. Here's another one for you. They're real good at giving you things to do. 2078. You are required, and this may pass too, to adopt and implement a policy on school safety and security to protect student, teachers, school employees on school property in a vehicle or school-sponsored activity or event. You have to prepare and adopt a policy and a plan for all that. And it says also that the plan will be shall require the school security officer designated as a school law enforcement officer pursuant to so-and-so. And if there's no school, get this, there's no school security officer, then the superintendent or the superintendent's designee is to annually meet with emergency medical responders, first responders, law enforcement, and discuss their safety plan. So for most districts, you just got another job. Not all.
We designated our senator.
If you, yeah, I tell you what, if you believe they're responsible. One of the kids one time said, "Don't you think we're a responsible young adult?" And I said, "Well, sometimes no." That's on a license plate. We don't care about that. Another one gets into driver's license and seizure disorders. That wouldn't affect you much. Greg 2093.
There it is.
Yeah.
Commercial driver's licenses. The best I can tell, they're just adding some notations on a commercial driver's license that would indicate the driver can't drive if there's no manual transmission, no tractor trailer, no Class A passenger vehicle, no Class A or B passenger vehicle. I don't think it'll affect a whole lot of your bus drivers in the north.
How many of your bus drivers, how many of you got buses with manual transmissions? Anybody?
Not seeing any.
All right, that's interesting. Okay, 2095.
2095 is the bill that would sell revenue bonds to finance capers. And the way it's written now, they would sell an amount not to exceed $1.5 million.
And
$1 billion.
what, yeah, and that's been changed to $1 billion. They lowered it to $1 billion. They also are making an effort in 2099 to make an effort to clean up the Student Privacy Act. And what they did is exempt that, what do you call that survey that goes out on students for individuals? Yeah, that all I can see they did is exempt that.
If the parent has the right to opt out, and if the data is only reported in aggregate form, you do not report any individual data.
Is there any others? That's all. Yeah, well, so that's kind of where we are. The big issue this week is going to be to try to get through that cut bill. They call it the rescission bill, and they're going to twist arms on that one big time to do that. And there'll be some no votes, and there'll also be a lot of discussion about it. And so that'll be interesting, because all these cuts, everybody's got certain things, legislators, things they're interested in, I assume. And you don't support schools, do you support higher ed, what do you support? Because about everybody's in there. Now, on the rescission bill, education has been pulled out, and they're going to put us in a separate bill. So we don't have much in there. There's a provision in the rescission bill, I think it's about 21 cents in there, that delays the capital outlay payment to after June 15th. It's supposed to go out here in another, middle of next month. And they're moving it back to June 15th. And you know what that's over, cash flow and the money's paid. We're moving an awful lot of money back to the last 2 weeks of June and the first week of July. A lot of money. Craig, this would put us up over 20%, wouldn't it?
We were already 22%.
So this would put us up probably another, up to 25% of your money is going to come in a 3-week period. So what other words of wisdom and great suggestions do you have? Because this Senate Bill 71 has any of your legislators said anything to you about that bill yet? Good. Well, I don't know what else we can say, but whatever you're going to do or say, you need to do it, but as soon as possible, I think. And of course, if it gets through the Senate, or the House has to look at it. And the other thing too is some things like this, they may not send it to the committee you think it would go to. For example, this is coming out of Ways and Means. Theoretically, traditionally, it's always been education. But they put this in Ways and Means. Or in the House, they could put it in appropriations or something like that. You don't know. It depends on whether or not they think they've got the horses to get what they want.
Plus, if it's an exempt committee, it stays alive forever. So a number of bills have been introduced in federal and state affairs.
In Ways and Means, they're alive forever, so they could pop them up at any time. Hey, we need some good news, some encouragement. Can you guys provide it for us, please?
Pretty quiet.
The sun is shining in Kansas.
Dale, other than Senate Bill 71, where can we be putting some of our energies to make some positive changes? What do you recommend?
Well, that's a good question. That bill on fingerprinting, that you have to do every time you renew your license is kind of silly because they're already on file. And you think about that, there's 35,000 people, they're going to have to renew that every 5 years. We'll get fingerprints that are already on file. That's one.
Some might think that's not efficient.
Okay, that'd be one. I tell you what, the one I used Sue as an example on, Sue, was that Senate Bill 67? No, it was a House bill, Steve Brunk's bill. The one on protesting taxes, that chances are that won't affect very many, but the ones that does is 2001. They're going to hold your money up. So, and Sue, in your case, in your county and in your district, if they decide to protest their taxes and they paid it under protest, the county kept it, they could bring you and the county to their knees rather quickly, couldn't they?
Yep.
So that the money would be sitting in the county treasurer's office. We've got some of these protested taxes, like Chanute, going on, we're in the third year. So, anyway, that's another one. What other ones can, that between you, us kids, that tax credit scholarship bill ought to be killed, but it won't be probably. I was trying to think if there's any others besides those. These, oh, 67. Forrest Knox bill on Common Core and going back 6 years ago and redoing the test and all that. I don't know what happened on that, because if we did that, they could even, Billy Mayer, they might hold up our federal funds on that one. That's pretty bad. That was 67. Any of the bills that I mentioned that requires you to do something, they don't like this term, but you could use the term as a non-funded mandate. Anything else? Kind of 71 is a big focus. 67 is bad. Brunk's bill on setting on the, that'll hit a few. The title on Senate Bill 60, you're opening up Pandora's box on Senate Bill 60, and that's the bill that lets homeschoolers participate in school activities. And they have 4 full years to participate.
The Activities Association has been picking up on that pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, they will, but they need help. Because it's the association, they represent everybody, but if they don't hear from very many people, they're liable to pass that. A sympathy vote. That'd be the ones that come to mind in a hurry. Any words of wisdom for us?
Keep fighting the fight.
Guys, keep up the good work, and don't forget to thank those teachers. You know, everything they read in the paper about negative, they're busting their tail to try to do what's right. They're doing a whale of a job, and so forth. And we need to figure out a way to thank them on a regular basis. I'm scared to death. I talked to Destry the other day, Brown, and he said, I said, you get very many people that's going to retire that's eligible? He said, more than usual. I'm telling you, the kids coming out of higher ed, the numbers are down. The numbers entering are down. If we don't get that retirement bill extended on capers, we're in a world of hurt. Take all of your people drawing capers that's gone back to work. They're not losing any money. They don't pass that jealousy thing, kind of, because they're not losing any money yet to pay a 22% surcharge. But if we lost them plus the normal retirees, there ain't enough teachers to go around. We'd be back in the system we did a few years ago, that everybody's very ethical and you don't recruit from your neighbor, but what you do, you have somebody on staff call that teacher that knows them and says, you know, there's a vacancy over here. Have you ever know anybody that's done that? You wait till about the 1st of July and it's amazing the number of things that happen. And I don't blame you. I wouldn't admit it. But teachers.
We'll start our meeting after that uplifting conversation. We've got some guests today. We've got a group from Great Bend here visiting. Brad Reed, Superintendent, Chris Thexton, Assistant Superintendent, and John Pope. If you guys stand and wave, we know who you are. Welcome. We also have Stafford Board member Jim. Gary Sechrist from KASB. He joins us many times. Corey, from a little bit later from Valley Center, is with us today. And I think with that, we'll jump into the HubSpot with Kevin and Corey. We'll jump right in.
While they're setting up, if you want to refresh your copy, do so.
There's people in the field that say, okay. Oh, this is resolution. What green light?
I love it when you get on a projector that does some weird. Take a little risk here to do a restart.
Oh.
You good? I love
Yep.
the reason I was taking this
I can do that. What happened?
display was all jacked up. So I did a restart.
You press the power button, I'm sure it did. You just learn.
New thing.
Hey,
We're not gonna have homework, are we?
Yes. Becky told me it's payback.
Okay, I'm gonna see you, yes, Friday?
he said he wasn't gonna call it 6.
Well, if not, we can do our mics.
Yeah, we'll be good. He'll be able to do that.
Look up here. You're live, but you're live up here. Not here, you're just showing. You're on. What's this? Here, let me go get that for you.
Yeah. Well, this.
You're ready. We're ready? Yeah, let's go.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started with the tech guys.
How was that? You can tell that doesn't work.
Yeah, very impressive.
Well, good morning. Is that it?
Really got a hold of it.
How many of you have been on a website? How many of you have been on a website? A website, any website. Very good. How many have been on a Facebook? You have a Facebook account. Look at that. How many of you are on Twitter? Good, because Kevin will kill you if you're not. Now, here's the reality. What we're teaching today, what we're discussing today, is no different than the three things we just talked about. If you can go on a website, if you understand Facebook, if you understand Twitter, you can do this. Now, I'll start with a backstory here a little bit. I'm on a personal mission to get rid of reply all. I'm on a personal mission to get rid of reply all, particularly on listservs. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I don't mind getting the first initial message, but I don't really want everyone else's feedback on my inbox. It's just personal. So I'm on a personal mission, but I'm also on a mission for the KSSA Communications Board to improve the communications and connections between us as KSSA members. So starting about a year ago, we started having discussions about how we can improve our communication and connections. And as a result, the KSSA HubSpot was birthed. Last spring, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, last spring, I became very active in sharing my ideas about what was happening in Topeka. Never crossing that line as a superintendent, but getting darn close. In the fall, I published some stats about our own district and Valley Center, about what was going on and how the budget cuts were affecting us and per pupil spending, all those type of things. And I put it on Twitter, and then I got a response back, which is not abnormal. I get beat up every once in a while by people who have different beliefs than I do about funding for education. And I always pay attention to them. Sometimes I block them because I don't like them. But this particular response kept on going, saying my stats were wrong, my stats are wrong, my stats are wrong. And the person eventually said, I'm getting my answers from KSD. I said, I'm getting my numbers from KSD. How is it possible that you're looking at different numbers than me? I was really getting frustrated because we kept going back and forth. It was back in September. And then I realized that the person I was corresponding with was the governor's budget director, Sean Sullivan. I didn't know his name. I now know it, but I sure didn't know his name then. What we discovered was he had a lack of understanding between FTE and headcount. We were using the same charts, but just didn't understand the difference of those two numbers. I realized at that point, and just like we experienced a little bit ago, there are some things that we would like to tweet or Facebook right now. We all have a little bit of frustration about what's happening. But it's probably not in the best interest of our districts that we represent our district in a way we would like to and share our thoughts, really what we think down deep about what's going on. So in essence, came Google HubSpot for KSSA members. And if you're not on yet, I encourage you to do it today. It's a real simple process. We're going to take you first to the KSSA site, which is KansasSuperintendentsPlural.org. That's where you start. In case you get lost, you don't bookmark it, you don't remember, this is where you start. On the right-hand side, you'll find two hyperlinks. The first is, hey, I've never had access, I want access, because it is a secured environment. Unlike your Twitter that anyone can see, it's fully secured for only KSSA members. So if you now have access, that's where you click. And I will process those in about 24 to 48 hours once I get them. But the part that we'd like to show you today is just highlight, and we're going to have a few minutes here, so we're going to highlight the big picture, the tools. So Kev, if you don't mind, go ahead and take me to KSSA HubSpot, which the link is there, and he already has it open. That's the community.
There we go. Is that what you're wanting?
How about you go back to the KSSA, go left, one more tab.
Yep.
Thank you. Let's click down here.
It's a well-oiled presentation, as you can tell. So there we go. Is this?
That's it.
Now we're there.
So this is the KSSA HubSpot. You can't even get to the website. It's not searchable. No one can find it. You have to have the link in order to get to it, and you have to have access to get into the website. On the KSSA HubSpot, I call this the landing place for all the other tools we're going to discuss. And so if you don't mind scrolling down just a little bit, Kevin, we'll talk about the various tools. The first thing is helpful videos. So in essence, you get back today and you go, you know what, I didn't quite understand Corey. He talked too quick. He was making jokes about other things. I'm sidetracked. I have created 3 links highlighting exactly what we're showing today so you can watch it at your own leisure. And they actually show exactly step-by-step the process of using the tools. The second, and Kevin's going to talk about that here in a little bit, are shared files. How many times have we asked or seen a listserv asking for the same thing that we saw just 3 months ago? So now we've shared files. We have shared files accumulated throughout the state, everything from calendars to classified handbooks, and those will continue to grow, negotiate agreements, et cetera. So that will continue to grow. Keep on scrolling down. The Go community we'll spend a little more time on a little bit. That's like Facebook or Twitter. It's a social account just for us. And then these people are very important because if you want to contact and have more dialogue about how to use the tools, or you want to add something to the Google Drive, all these people here have permission to actually edit or add things to those files. Everyone else can just view. You only have so many people managing.
And I even had, I don't even know, I can't remember who called me the other day. I had somebody call me the other day and they said, I was trying to post some stuff there. And I said, well, you can't post there. And then I was trying to fumble around and see who was the moron that there was their data curator that hadn't informed them. And it's Region 5, I think.
Yeah, it was you.
Yeah. So even after I'd sent out 4 or 5 emails to people, it's still, I don't think it had sunk in yet. So just make sure you know who your person is. And Corey or I'll be happy to help you too. Sure. If you don't like your person, I mean, if Sue happened to be your person, feel free to You're not on
She's
there,
not.
are you? Oh, that's good. That was
We took her
why.
off the
Yeah.
list.
Uh-huh.
Then if you scroll to the right, Kevin, go back
Uh-huh.
to the top, I'll walk through just a few more things. If you scroll on down, please, thank you. And go down to the KSSA talk. Bill Hagerman, we really appreciate what he does, but if you want a direct link to all those talks, the remarkable chatter here at Essdack, you can find a link there. And then I don't know that for those of you that attended the governmental relations seminar last week in Topeka, they've revealed a new website for KSB with lots of data. And so that's just the direct link, including your salaries. About Twitter, if you want to follow Twitter, make a tweet from this page, you can do that. Here's the coolest tool I think that's probably underutilized right now. That's a Hangout. And Kevin and I used it just yesterday. It's how we prepared for today. The Hangout allows you to video conference with 9 KSSA members. So all 9 of you can be on, it's kind of like Skype. You just simply click on it. You type in the email addresses of people you want to talk to. Boom, it blasts them saying, hey, you have an invite. And if you want more details how to do that, if you want to try it, you want to practice, Kevin and I can help. And certainly a lot of the curators could as well. But we need to do more of that face-to-face. It does feel awkward to be on camera, but guys, you get so much more out of it. We know that than an email or just a phone call. It's just the next step up. So once again, the KSSA HubSpot is the place you begin. Where do you want to go next? You want to go into the data or you want to go down to communities?
Let's do communities.
Go for it. The KSSA Google community is very similar to a Facebook page. And this is what my dream is, that this replaces the reply alls on the listserv. One, I don't know if you know this, but the listserv is not just for superintendents. So when you're posting your opinions, when it's not just, hey, you're sharing information, but you're sharing an opinion, some people have received phone calls from KSD officials or legislators saying, I saw you write that post, I have a comment about that. Remember, that's not just superintendents seeing that. This, on the other hand, is just superintendents seeing it. So this would be a place where we want to have that dialogue. We still want to be probably 4-letter words on it per se, but we still can be more honest about our opinions about things and have discussions. So once again, it's just like a post. Once you're in the Google community, unless you unclick, and if you go to the top there, Kevin, left-hand side, thank you. See over here where it says the little bell, notifications on, see on the top left-hand side, red, it says KSSA School Superintendents Association. Notifications on means you're getting an email every time someone posts an initial comment, which is great for me because honestly, I probably remember to go back unless someone posts. And you just get a link in your email, you click on it, and you can actually see the post. Now, you will not see comments that are made on that post unless you originated the post, you made it, or you commented on that post. So don't worry about getting flooded with, oh my gosh, I want to see everything. No, you're just going to see the initial unless you yourself made the comment. So I suggest you keep notifications on personally. And then as you can see, Kevin will go up to the top and you can easily post. And Kevin, maybe you also want to make a quick post just for fun to show. Type like you would Facebook. You can see there's options. You can attach a photo, a link, a video, an event, which I don't know what that'd be, or a quick poll. Yes, no's, ABC, choose. And everyone can see the results instantaneously.
This one.
Choice one. That would be over the what?
Huh?
See where it says two? We have categories
So-
we have to establish. And so we have everything from this is a legislative discussion, this is communication, because it's going to be archived, which is the great thing about the Google community. Because like you, sometimes whatever someone's asking, I don't need right then. And 3 months later I go, somebody already asked about the cell phone stipend. I know someone did that. I can't remember who. See over here? Search community. You just type in cell phone stipend and it'll pull up that response from whenever it was posted. So you always can retrieve back to that initial level.
I'm having troubles here. Got to pick a category, but anyway.
Yep.
We did set up categories too. So we set up like when you do your post, you'll want to use a category, and I'm not sure why it's not showing up because anyway, because I need to pick the category. Oh, there it is. So communication, curriculum and assessment, question, legislative leadership. We'll just call this a question. And then that should be up and going. So if you're on there, If you're on, anybody's on, go ahead and hop on and go ahead and vote, and then you can watch it as we go. We tried to email those of you that hadn't got on yesterday so you could participate today a little bit.
So you can see that there are 93 members within the community right now. There are 160 members on the Google HubSpot. So what that tells me is a lot of people have signed up, got the initial, they haven't dove into this site yet. You have to accept it in order to get in. And so if you haven't, or if you have problems, feel free. Give me a call, drop an email. I feel passionate about, we know that superintendent turnover is going to happen. And we have to be together on a lot of topics right now. It's probably more critical today than it ever has been that superintendents are one voice in Kansas. And that's the whole purpose of this, because we can muddle through it, but not airing it out publicly. Just muddle through some things, but then come out as one voice.
And this is, Sue did a good job of posting this question the other day about reviewing for negotiations, their February 1 letter. There's some conversation in here about reduction in force. Well, if you look here, Cheryl Kime, Corey, George Griffith, Sue Gibbons, Dan Brengart, a lot of people have chimed in and shared some thoughts on that. And it's all in one place. So it's nice just to be able to go there and see that. And when Corey and we talked quite a bit. We were going to go with kind of a blog format. And then we saw Google Communities, and we just decided we think it's a better solution than a blog. I mean, we just think it's the best solution for us right now.
If you have an iPad or an Android device, you can download the app Google Communities, Google Plus, and you actually get the little alert saying, hey, you have a new post. There's also a Hangout button, so that little video conferencing, you can go straight from your iPad to the video conferencing from there as well.
So 67% of you are saying Corey is a good presenter.
That's better than I thought.
Wow. That's actually a lot better than...
That's a better vote than the governor got. No, it's not.
So one of the things, how many of you use Google Chrome? This all works. So I would encourage you, if you're not using Google Chrome, I would encourage you to use Google Chrome, because I think all of this works better with that web browser. One of the things that I have done that's helpful is if you come in here to, once you get into Chrome, if you just go to settings, if you come in here and it says on startup, open a specific page or set of pages. On mine, I hit set of pages. So to get it so you don't have to remember that KSSA HubSpot or all those things, you can just set your browser when you open it to open all of those tabs for you in advance. So it'll just kind of, when you start Chrome, it'll open up about 6 tabs for you. So mine, I open up our school website, I open up Gmail, I open up Google Drive, I open up Facebook and Twitter. And those all just open every time I open Chrome. So that's how I would approach it, and I think that would be helpful for you. Okay, so that's under, just once you get into Google, just go to settings. Okay. So one of the things I want to share a little bit is what we did is we tried to pre-populate some things early on. So what we said is, what are things people are always asking for on the listserv? And what we said is calendars. Everybody's always wanting calendars. So we started with calendars and negotiated agreements. And then we kind of formatted those inside of there. So again, everything is searchable. So keep that in mind. And once you're in this community, if you want a negotiated agreement, you type in negotiated agreement. It'll be easier just to go here, but if you're not sure, just type in that keyword. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like real quick. So negotiated agreements here, we divided them into classifications. So in 1A, we have, there they are, Ingalls, Moscow, Rolla, Satana, Caldwell, West Elk, and Woodson. Those are the ones we've gotten back. We obviously have more than 8 1A schools in the state, but that's the response we've got. So again, your data curator should have asked you for that information. If you didn't send it, it's okay, you can still send it, but we have to post it, okay? You have, so we set up several folders there. So there's classified handbooks, and we can add folders. So individual plans to study, if you want to know who's in your region, legislation stuff, Sample communications, Corey added that the other day because there was something he thought would be helpful. Student handbooks, survey information. This is the one that I think is going to be helpful. So I'm thinking here, it's funny. We had a in the last 2 weeks, we had a request on the listserv for cell phone information. Does everybody remember that? Corey and I both sent an email to that person saying that data is already on HubSpot. It's already there. All right, so it's right here. So cell phone survey, Mike Couch did that. It was done in September of 14. I used this with my board. Here it is. There's 26 responses. I will go in and add what Richard found to that. So it's all there. You don't have to ask the question. You just have to go find the data. So one of the things I think Corey and I are trying to figure out right now is how do we work with you to get the data collected and then put in a certain place? Because right now that's one of the things we want to show you is how do we do surveys better so that we collect the data in an easy format so we don't have to spend a lot of time. So I'm going to give an example of what that looks like. So this is something that just came out on the listserv. Do you remember seeing this? We're implementing Chromebooks. We're considering a tech fee. So here's all that data. And then they sent it back out. Well, what happens in 3 weeks when Mike wants to know this? And what happens in 3 more weeks when Ron wants to know about it? And so forth. So this data just needs to be given to us to post. So if somebody will just either just PDF this and send it to us, then we can post it for you. If you're not familiar, one of the things we're going to show you real quick is how many of you use Google Forms? How many of you use Google Forms? Okay, so maybe 20% of you do. So we have a quick form. I just want to show you how that works today. I set up a little survey, and I emailed you the survey because that was the easiest to do it. And I'm trying to do some stuff with Twitter, so it's about Twitter. Some of you have already filled it out, but if you would fill that out right now, if you check your email, there's a form there. If you would fill that out real quick, we'll watch how that works. But I want to show you how easy it is to do a form. So what you do is you go in here and you basically go to Google Drive and you say, I want to create a form. And basically you title it and then you just put your questions in. And then you email your link out. So it's a very simple tool that you can all be using to collect data. So you could collect the data and then send it to Corey or I and we'll post it. Or you can talk to Corey and I and we'll help you with your survey if you'll send us your questions. One of the new things that's in there is you can put pictures in, which is nice, but it correlates all your data for you. So that looks like, it'll give you a quick summary. So that survey I put out, we've already done it once, but if you look there, right away it says we can tell how many 1A schools completed the survey, 5%. How many 2A? So you can take a quick glance right away at your survey data and it'll change as you're doing it. Is anybody doing the survey right now? Okay, are you done with it? Okay, so those numbers will just continue to change. And so see how quickly we can gather data versus if you send out an email asking all this, we don't have usable data. So I think that's one of the things we're trying to help out with. What did we miss, Corey?
Can we go back?
Yes.
Just to the HubSpot itself real quick, just the site. And show them how to get to the drive from there. Yeah, if you just scroll down there, Kevin, to the drive area.
Down in here?
Yep. So you can view right here what we just talked about. Oh, sorry.
Oops. I don't go there that way.
Yeah, you just stay right here. If you go back to that HubSpot, you can find the exact same files we're just discussing right there. You can click on there and open them up as well. So you can access them straight from the HubSpot. So
Where
going into Google Drive.
Where at?
Right here in the middle.
Okay.
You can click on
Oh,
that.
right here?
Yep. So you can upload the exact same information from all in that one spot. Try and make it as convenient as possible for you all.
Are you not able to access the Google Communities without being part of the HubSpot?
Correct. You have to be able to, once you sign up, I sign you up for all three. You'll get access to the Drive, to the HubSpot, and to the community.
And we found there's some issues with getting, you have to be on Google Plus in order to be able to get on Google Communities. Just,
As I was searching for it. couldn't find
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's all hidden on purpose.
So the drive, I was just checking my drive, I don't see that I'm getting to this drive from mine. Did I miss the invitation? I can go back to it.
If you don't mind going back to HubSpot, Steve, it'll tell us a lot, and then clicking on the files to see if you can view them, because that'll tell me if you're in the system or not. A lot of times you have to check your incoming, which is what it's called on Drive, the incoming. But it's probably easiest to start here and then access it from there personally.
the other thing, this is also in the communities, it's like Facebook in that you can mention people and you can use hashtags. So notice here I use the hashtag Essdack, but you also can mention people. So you can say like plus Bill Hagerman, you see he's showing up here. So you can like things and it adds you to it, or you can add another member. So if I were to say plus Corey Gibson and I are wanting information, it'll show Corey. It's just a way to tag people too.
And just like Facebook, you get a notification that someone's tagged you via email.
What questions do you have?
That old survey you were just doing, where is that showing? You lost me there.
Well, it's right now, it's just showing I have access to it right here. So I can see it. There's, so several of you did it, but I also can do a quick look at it here. And then what we'll do, the survey, that's one of the issues. That's what we've been trying to figure out is we cannot share the survey results. What we've got to do is we'll PDF the survey results and drop them into the drive.
That answers my question.
But Google Tools or Forms is a good way for you to do your surveys. And again, if you don't know how to do it, just call us or send us your questions and we'll help you with it. Because there's a lot of stuff floating around out there right now that's just repeat data or data that we really need to have and store there.
So you know how much I don't know. I have to work with my tech guy to have Gmails, because I wonder why I didn't hear from you. I just realized I have Gmail and everything messages. So I can have to do something to my computer so that automatically.
Yeah, Gmail can be forwarded directly to your regular email if you wish it to be supported. So, yep.
Okay, so I need to talk with him about that.
Yeah, should be able to help you.
Yep.
And there's one setting in there they have to do too, maybe. So, but if he reads what we sent you, he should be able to help you with it.
Okay, I see there's a message there.
Mhm.
I keep waiting.
Anxiously waiting.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We need to lean on each other. And that's one way to do it without being in the same room together. So, hope you find it useful. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We're going to make a quick adjustment in our agenda. We have some Essdack reports, but we can skip those, except for one thing. One thing that's very important about Career Tech Ed is coming up. Cleo's going to take us about 5 minutes or so. We got some handouts for you that's very, very important on some upcoming dates and things we need to meet to help you. So Cleo, would you come up and share with us for 4 or 5 minutes? We'll hand out these handouts, and then we'll take a break and let Steve set up, and then we'll go from there. So we'll kind of move the agenda a bit.
Okay, I'd like to first of all thank you for all the support you've given me. Some of you know that I've worked for the last 4 years or so trying to get a simultaneous blended courses policy in place. I'm going to explain how that works because I think in lean times that's a huge thing to help school districts. That's where we can finally start to bring core classes together with CTE courses and bring those career applications together. I gave you, Steve is handing out a summary document of some examples of simultaneous blended courses. Let me give you an example. For instance, when we brought human anatomy together with human body systems, now that was able to be done before I got the state policy in place because they were both on the CTE design sheet. even though one was a core class, one was a CTE course, we were able to because they listed both of them. Some of the other things that you'll see on the sheet, until we got this policy in place, we weren't able to do that. One of the big things was being able to, and Todd Votes over at Sterling, he has a unique background because he has a journalism background, English background, comprehensive business. He had told me I was working on this policy, and he told me, he said, you know what? You just keep working on the policy. I'm going to work on the teaching plan. So he has literally pulled together all the standards for English 11, together with project management, which is a CTE course that sits in 11 pathways. Very soon will be 12 pathways because there's another pathway they're going to add it to. That's huge because now we're going to start to have an application level class that will sit, that every kid's going to take in those CTE courses, but also will bring together, I think it will make a better core academic class because as Todd said, he said, when those kids learn some of those independent practices of how to bring projects together and that kind of thing with the like research papers and that kind of thing that they do at junior level. So anyway, he told me he will be glad to share. I have his teaching plan, how to teach those together. So that way a teacher who's going, I don't see how you could do that. He's also willing to do some professional development, that kind of thing, if that'll help anybody, because he wants to help me get this across the state. So that's one wonderful combination. The second one, I spent a lot of time the last 4 years working with engineering by design and also working with the math standards and the next generation science standards. I've now brought together geometry with technological design. We will have the national training here in June. That's huge. The reason I'm saying something now is because in order for me to get you the benefit, you have to file your pathway applications by March 16th. And make sure that you've got project management listed on every pathway that you do, that's allowed for. Because that way it'll make it easier for you to have concentrators, you know, where they finish 3 credits, I think. The second thing is, needless to say, with the alternative licensure requirements, a national certification allows that teacher who's already highly qualified to do the academic, then to be able to become highly qualified to teach the CTE piece. I think that's going to be huge because we're going to really start to change the level of understanding of math when those kids can actually see those real life applications with that. So I know I talked pretty fast. I had quite a few different things there, but I want to make sure that you guys kind of start to see where this is going. The third thing I've got for you is I worked with the Project Management Institute Educational Foundation, because there again, because of alternative licensure, if you have a national certification, then that allows you some freedom with licensure. Right now, project management requires 4 different types of licensure depending on what pathway it's sitting in. I told the State Department, in my opinion, that's kind of stupid. Because if it's the same standards, but it's just different content that we're bringing, that we're having those kids use in these small schools, why in the world have 4 different project management classes? They said, well, if you have a national certification, that's no longer a thing. So I went and pursued the Project Management Institute Educational Foundation out of Pennsylvania. I'm very happy to announce we will have the national certification training in the fall. So those districts that already have arts, AV, and communication, your English teacher's already going to be highly qualified to do that. So that meets the requirement for September 20th. But for later, all these other pathways that you need project management for, that teacher can become nationally certified to teach the project management. All of a sudden, it works for all 12 pathways. See the coolness of that? Another thing I've done is worked with the health science area. You know, health science has been very hard to do, even though it's the #1 career field for the next 10 to 15 years. Health science has been very hard to do in a small school. Look what, we've got that fixed for you. On that sheet, you'll notice on the back side, the 3 pathways that are in now that the things we've done. so that you can literally have, be able to teach it in every school district in the state of Kansas. Health science, now instead of having to have health science 1, you can use biology for your introductory class. We have the human anatomy and human body systems. We've already showed you how to bring that together using the anatomy and clay. Then the next one, project management. We've already showed you how you can bring that together with English 11. You see how all of a sudden you've made a health science pathway very doable in every single school district in the state of Kansas. And then you can partner with where you send your kid for the community college with certified nurse aid, and they get that industry recognized credential. All of a sudden, we've made health science doable in every single school district. And I am so excited about it. Can you tell? And we've made engineering applied mathematics with the engineering design certification. We've all of a sudden brought that so that every single school district could make it doable in the state of Kansas. And the biochemistry is another option, which we've brought that, we have the human anatomy there again. And I've listed the statewide agreement. There's 5 different statewide articulation agreements for health science. There is one right now that has the biology on it as an option. I'm working with the other 4 to see if we can get that option as well. So you can use Cloud County for your applications. So you can see I've already got the playing field fixed for you. So now just apply for the pathways. Do you guys have questions? I know I talked fast because I'm on a tight schedule. Yes.
Can you expand on this national certification program and what specific courses will that teacher be able to teach with that certification?
For the project management?
Is it just project
They will be able to, okay, these national certifications are tied to a certain course, okay? So project management, for instance, if they get the project management national certification in the fall, that one teacher at Stafford, I'll just use Stafford as an example. Say she's maybe got 7 pathways that has project management in it. That one teacher could serve all 7 pathways at that school district instead of her having to have one that has science and math certification for this pathway, one that has computer certification for this pathway, one that has English or computer certification in this pathway. See what I'm trying to say? We've all of a sudden torn down the wall, and she can, because it's the same standards. It's just what content you're doing those standards with. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? And see, the same thing with the math. That math teacher's already highly qualified to teach math. Now that we bring in the technical skill training so that they get a national certificate of completion that they can use to make them highly qualified to teach that technological design or engineering design, depending on the state title or the EBD title. You see what you've already done? You've taken an existing slot, made a better learning experience for the kids because the kids see how that learning content is actually applied and not just core academic, but they start to see how that, when that kid can see, and now I got you the Autodesk software, remember? When we got the software, $250 million worth of software, all of a sudden that made Autodesk software affordable in the whole state of Kansas for every single school district. So you see how we've laid the different pieces in place so this can come together. And then I've got my partner over here, Carolyn Cole, that'll be helping me with the engineering design. And national traders will be here in June to help me as well. Questions? I know I threw a lot at you. Yes.
Thank you, Clayton.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead and set up, anybody, you need a break, you have to move around, we're gonna refresh your coffee, Steve. Go ahead and go in here. I just plugged in. He is plugged in. About 5 minutes, guys and gals. We'll get going. 5 minutes.
No, probably. That would be great. I'd like to see that. Thing is, I've got some activity around 3 routes. Just hold us.
Throwing my email.
Very few miles. We're not racking up that. I've got a route bus and I'm racking up miles. My Lewis, 5 years old, has 100. Yeah, my Lewis right out there. I'm in trouble. I haven't seen it. Okay. They just can't handle it. I just don't think that's anything.
Well, I don't think that's a big
I haven't sat down.
Oh, yeah.
And Corey, that's wonderful.
Okay, let's do it.
So how much would they take care of all of that? Just do the route.
I don't know. We're interested, so yeah. I already know what. Really understand the whole summer issue, why would that matter?
I mean, Paris would that be with Paris too? Well, that would be transportation.
Oh, yeah?
Did you
go to the house?
Yeah, well, yeah, I just see your contract.
Okay, folks, I have content to cover. Or you could ignore me. People, work with me. Kathy.
Okay, while Mike and Mike are out of the room, I do want to thank them for letting me be on after Dale Dennis does the legislative update. It's always an enviable position. Hey, I do want to remind you of something, though. I put a card on the table for you about the energy level. We talk about this every month. You know, the reality is still this. You're going to go home, and you're still going to work with kids, and we still have to do the best job we can. So, you know, we always talk about strive for 5. Check your mindset. I know where the energy level was earlier. Let's see if we can't get to level 5 and see some opportunities now. You know, Cleela did a nice job. You've got some real opportunities around the CTE, and that feeds right into what we want to talk about now.
Before you go there, I just want to propose one thought for this group, and that is going back to the energy levels and that, you know, you get to choose how you're going to show up for the game. Now, any of you, and I'm just saying, Valentine's Day is coming up, guys. You might want to know a little bit about pearls and diamonds and things like that. So the lesson today is going to be on pearls. And you know how a pearl is developed, right? Everybody know how in nature how a pearl is made? So you have clam and you have some kind of an irritant that gets in between the shell of the clam. Now, we talk about it being a grain of sand, but I learned just today as I looked this up that that's not really very common. It does happen usually in some kind of a parasite or something, or a little bit of food or something. But the point is this, that at the time that irritant joins the clam in there, the clam has 2 choices. They can either begin to develop nacre around that and develop a beautiful pearl, or have an opportunity, or it can die. And I'm just saying, the choice is yours.
So we are choosing to make pearls today. So I want to give you just a little bit of background, and I will pop this up as I do it. Just before Christmas, we get a call from Senator Abrams. And he said, hey, would you guys host a meeting at Essdack for me? I want to talk to some educators about what I'm thinking about school finance. And this was his criteria. He said, I know some people I'm going to invite. I want a cross-section that, you know, that we can get together and talk about an idea that I have for funding. But he said, I want people that'll give me honest feedback. And so this group now has met 3 times. And I kind of broke those down by category so you would see the kind of people that were involved in that. And I'll get this presentation to you if you want it. I will warn you, this can change on a daily basis, so be prepared. But his proposal that first day has changed dramatically since then. Bill, is that a fair statement? Bob? Yeah. He really wanted a new finance formula this year, and through literally hours of conversation and yeah buts, little different proposal now that will be submitted as legislation. I believe it's next Monday, he said, is when it will be submitted. Now, he originally started out talking about all schools, but through the conversation, he has been convinced that it would really make sense, if you really want a different finance formula, to run a pilot program. Does that make sense to you? So this is kind of where this stands right now. So I just want to walk through for you what he is thinking. That starting next year, the innovative districts, and that's key, the 6 innovative districts would start to function under this process, okay? And they would receive compensation, additional compensation next year for each graduate that is successful. Now, probably the key to this has been the whole discussion about what in the world does successful mean? And I don't know, Bob and Bill, I've been pretty pleased with how we define success, and I think everyone else at the table has also. Interestingly, there was one point that was in universal agreement. Absolutely no disagreement. Nobody uses state assessments. We take them and nobody really uses them. That was the one piece of data that was universal, which was interesting. Okay, so one way, this is just one of 6. A student would be successful if they complete 2 semesters and are enrolled full-time in a 3rd semester in a 4-year program. So you send a kid to a 4-year college, they get 24 hours the first year, they're successfully enrolled in 1 more semester. And it doesn't say completed, just successfully enrolled. What the data shows us is this. If a kid succeeds the first year with full load and they start their 2nd year, their chances of success skyrocket. skyrocket. You'll notice Andy Tompkins was on that list. Andy brought a lot of this kind of data that post-secondary looks at, okay? Now, this is the caveat here. Remedial courses do not count in those hours. So if a student had to take a remedial math class in their freshman year, they'd have to have 15 hours to be considered full-time on this. Does that make sense to you? Okay, that's option one. Option two, same thing, except in a 2-year program. Community college or technical college. They would be successful if they make it through the first year, 24 hours, enrolled in the second year. Third category, successfully acquire an industry certification within 24 months of graduation. So kid leaves your school, within 24 months, they get an industry certification. That is considered to be a successful student for you. Okay. Fourth option, they enter military basic, they enlist. Now, interestingly, how many of you are wondering where are we going to get all this data? Okay, all the data is accessible someplace, except what we really wanted was successfully complete basic training. Can't get it. At this point in time, it cannot be got. Everything else, there is some agency that they can work with to bring this data in. So the school would not be responsible for collecting the data. That would be done at the state level, okay? So this one, it's the military evidently will tell us who enlisted. They just won't tell us who's successful. Okay, so that's the fourth method. The fifth one, if a student leaves your school and they get a job where they are earning at least 250% of the poverty level. Now we're going to talk with Rebecca Lewis in a little bit, but one of the keys to that is if you don't get at least over 200% of poverty level, you're better off on welfare. You're better off on government assistance because, you know, as you earn more, you start losing benefits. So that student, to really be successful, has got to earn more. And then the sixth way are those special education students on extended standards. Those are the students that are significantly physically and cognitively disabled. They just have to be employed. That's a kid you want to get to Walmart helping stock shelves. You know, working in a shelter sweeping the floors. That is considered to be a success. So those are the 6 categories of successful students. Let me pause and you can ask Bob, Bill, or myself questions about that. Is that pretty clear? The data would be presented on your dashboard that KSDE is putting together. Bill?
Steve, I think you've done a great job of explaining the what and the how. Why does this matter? Because I think that's a piece that we had a lot of benefit of hearing. Why does this matter? What are we trying to do? But why we're doing this? Because I think that's because, and I'll make a comment later about as we go forward, but I think go back and talk about the why.
Well, go ahead, Bill. Give them your opinion.
Well, if we believe right over there that that's what we're about, that college and career readiness definition, if we're about that, if we think that's why we're doing what we're doing, and it matters that we get our graduates, not just out of high school, but into the middle class. And why does that matter? Because in our state, we need a workforce that has an education to make the middle class. We know what that takes. About 65 or 67% of our graduates need to have that. Through this is why we're going to get them there. This is how we're going to get them there. But we have to have that to meet the labor demand so our state prospers. We got to get out of this revenue problem, and the way we do that is get more people in the middle class. Again, to try to address that problem long term, this is how we can maybe make some progress and pay attention to some success indicators rather than the trailing indicators of assessment and all that stuff. It isn't enough. That's an input. This is truly success outcome.
And you can imagine Randy Watson was very influential in this conversation and the whole idea about true outcomes versus inputs. And we just kept focusing the legislators on outcomes. Quit telling us, you know, quit sticking in there everything you think's important for a kid to be successful. Just measure the end results. Other questions, comments?
So this would be, if it comes about, this would be just for the schools that are already innovative districts. And so we would just kind of watch them next year and see how it goes.
Yeah.
So the rest of us are just kind of
Mary Jo, this was about a 4-hour conversation. This was about a 4-hour conversation, so I'm going to really give you the Reader's Digest version. Every superintendent in the room that wasn't a member of the innovative district said, how can I be part of it? And the group finally decided, you got to run a pilot. You are dramatically shifting the paradigm. It's an adaptive challenge, and we got to experiment that. So over the next year. Now, just a side note, I attended the Innovative District Board meeting 2 weeks ago. My opinion, the innovative districts are going to rewrite the rule book for Kansas. The school rule book is going to be rewritten by those innovative districts. If you haven't thought about applying, you should be. Well, if you want to talk more, I'll visit with you later. But so yes, this is a pilot program. Now, we've asked the Senator Abrams very directly, and he's answered he would love to see this then become the finance formula for the state after 2 or 3 years. Actually, he wants it now. And he admits that he's impatient, but he said, I understand, we got to do some experimenting. And he was asked directly, what's the governor's plan long term? He said, the governor does not have a plan, he just doesn't want what's there now. Hence the block grants for a year. My opinion, Bill, Bob, you jump in if you disagree. I think that we're starting to experiment with where the finance formula could go in the future for everyone. A shifting focus to real student success. Your opinion, Bill?
Couple of details about that, and I told both of those senators personally. I said, there's 2 real problems with what's going on here. I said, to make this successful, it does need to be experimented with. And Steve admitted that he did not have the details to take what he has today and what he'll eventually have and scale it up. It doesn't work. His legislative research people had to make that. They have to work that some more. They don't have it so it can apply from small to large. It doesn't work yet. The innovative district is going to give them a chance to do that. So I said the second thing is, what will happen if the governor's block grant program passes? You have lost any chance for this to ever go anywhere, because I said, I guarantee you, and I'll be the first superintendent in line, we won't hear one more thing that's out there. It might be good, because that's going to be what's going to be the issue. How do we get through 2 years of block grants and basically flat or reduced funding, as for what we've seen in Senate Bill 71. So that's why I said it is important that that transition, which is always the hard part on this, to allow this to try it. Make the transition gradual instead of all at once and dramatic. And to me, a block grant is a dramatic change. I said, you won't get anybody to listen to anything, even if there's a better idea, because that's what's going to happen for 2 years if you do that. And they both agreed that's probably true. So I said, tell your colleagues to slow it down. Well, I don't know if that worked or not, but I've got an email right here because Senator Markey was sitting right beside me in this whole conversation, and he wants feedback. He's on the Senate Ways and Means Committee, so guess what? He and his group are going to get some feedback about that. Because I think it's important that if this is going to work, and it could, but it's going to take some time to work it out, and we have to be comfortable to take the message out there as to why it matters. We have to convince ourselves that the why matters, because the how and the details of that will come, but it has to be tried.
Bob represented small rural schools. He was the voice for a lot of us in the room.
Only 180 years. So the hard part for me is that, this is really level 6 type thinking.
Yep.
And our senator, Senator Abrams believes that if we can pull this off, the legislature, he believes in his heart that the legislature will accept this as outcomes and leave us alone on testing and everything else, to the degree that if we put it in the finance formula, maybe they will start adding money to it. He's kind of telling them, you need to put your money where your mouth is. You say they don't need any extra money. Well, if they can pull off that they are successful, wouldn't that show that they're deserving of extra funding? Now, again, you have to trust, and that's a hard thing for us to do. And all of us in that committee are listening with both sides of our head, the heart and the head, trying to get this down. But in the end, I'd rather work on something this way than where we're going with block grants and everything else.
So let me kind of give you an idea. The way it sets now, do understand though, this thing is literally can change daily in terms of the numbers. In fact, these examples, the numbers have already changed, but this is to give you an idea what it would look like. If you had 100 successful students and your poverty rate was 95%. That's Kansas City, Kansas. And the rate was set at $1,000, they would receive an additional $95,000, okay? If your poverty rate, same situation, was only 5%, which is basically Blue Valley, you'd only receive that much money. So there was real strong support that if you're working with high poverty rates, at-risk rates, you got to have more money to educate those kids. So that was that piece of the formula. Second, by the way, Brad Nuenswander worked his butt off for 2 days. He's been very positive about this, by the way, and got the numbers for the 6 innovative districts. Just based on that formula, this is the amount of money they would receive next year in addition to. This is in addition to. Well, for Cindy Lane, that's $250,000. Now, she's got a huge budget, but $250,000 is still pretty good money. I'll give you a chance to digest that. And Mike, I'll have you send this PowerPoint out to everybody so you can dig in a little more. The success index would just be a percentage of your graduates that are successful, okay? There is one more way, in addition to, this would be separate from, that you would also have a 3-year rolling average of your success rate to take the spikes out. And you would receive additional funding based on that. Now, at this point, and I mean, that's now, in an hour from now, it could change. That dollar amount's not $1,000, but it's at $1,500. Okay, and the 3-year rolling average number would be $25,000. So the formula for the 3-year rolling would be the success index times the number of students that started 9th grade. So we didn't want to get in a situation where it was an advantage to have dropouts. Okay, so with the rolling average, those dropouts will hurt you. The district poverty rate times the success dollars. That's the formula as we speak. The numbers are $1,500 and $25,000 to put into that formula. Okay, does that make sense? You just plug the numbers in and multiply. Would produce that revenue. Okay. This has been real interesting too. Andy Tompkins been at the table. The proposal that will actually go, they're working towards next year legislation that would require post-secondary to be successful. So their graduates would have to graduate and get jobs. That's not going to be a real popular bill, by the way. Not at all. Well, though, if they sign in the NBA, I think they'll probably meet that. Yeah, the 250% of poverty level. I'm pretty sure that they'll hit that. Also, at the innovative district level, when they were talking, it was real interesting because there was talk about an accreditation model based on student success, not test scores. I haven't talked to a superintendent that didn't say that's what we ought to be focusing on, student success. And it was funny because they kept going between just the innovative districts and the whole state. And so it kind of meandered back and forth. I think there's a reasonable chance that when they go to the feds here in the next, 2 months, Bill, with a waiver, there may be proposal A and proposal B, and B would be based on student success, not test scores. So that'll be interesting to see. This is just an example of the data that comes from the National Student Clearinghouse. We use that to look and kind of get some numbers. I included that in the PowerPoint, so when I get it mailed to you, you can kind of look and see what kind of numbers. You can go to the SEEK data and see what your numbers are. You could do some, back of the envelope kinds of calculations. Does that make sense to you? So that's all I had on that. Questions, comments? Tom?
When we looked at that data on the KSDE website, we had half our people not listed. How are they going to track these guys and make sure we're accurate?
They understand. Listen, that's part of that pilot program. We got to get data in place that's much cleaner. They know that. There hasn't been a need to put effort into making it cleaner in the past. So yes, they're working on that. Bill?
Talking about students that you have that you don't even show up anywhere. Yeah. McPherson College is a good example. Not all the post-secondary institutions participate in that student clearinghouse. And that's the issue. That's what Steve's talking about. So it would behoove them in McPherson to get McPherson College to participate because they send a chunk of kids over there. And there are others like that.
Baker University doesn't participate.
They know that that's an issue for them. They'll clean that up.
Bethel's not on there.
Yeah, that's another one.
I mean, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a fair chance there could be some political pressure put on them.
What about out of state?
Well, out of state, the National Student Clearinghouse, that is an issue, no doubt. The goal is this. The data is not going to be perfect the first year. What we want to do is reduce uncertainty and just keep getting better. And that was part of the argument. You can't just flip a switch and change the funding formula. You got to put some systems in place. Okay, other questions? Yes.
Job reports and all the stuff that goes into employment and unemployment. And they can find that data on our kids, but not every employer is going to put those kids in that system. How do we get to that sector?
They work around the employers. They go right to the labor data
And revenue data.
And they get it through other sources than going to employers. They don't work with employers. They go to the labor information.
And Steve, again, there's been no effort to find that data because it didn't matter.
And this will take the place of any basic per pupil funding, or is this addition to?
This is in addition to whatever that funding turns out to be for this year.
Where is that showing up in labor?
That's one of the things. If a kid goes to a family farm, so they become employed, if they don't show 2.5 times 250% of the poverty rate as income, they would not show as successful. My opinion is this: there will be some process put in place where you can say, but we know this kid, what's the evidence, and you get them approved. Yeah.
They talked about that.
And again, the data will not be perfect next year. But the systems are there to start making it better and better. Other questions or comments? Okay, so with that, go ahead.
If this is additional funding, there's a problem there.
Well, for this year, and Steve has gone Ways and Means, House, Senate, he's got the people. In the big scheme for the pilot year, it's a drop in the bucket. Yeah. Then it's got to be included in the whole formula. What are we going to do? And again, that's why you got to do some experiments and see.
What are the senator's thoughts on our budget being in the red basically for the next 5 or 6 years? Where are they going to get this black?
He will not throw leadership under the bus. He's bit the inside of his mouth many times. This is my personal opinion. I heard Dale say contact your legislator. I think a second phone call to Susan Waggle would be appropriate. Just my opinion. The legislators are very reluctant to go against leadership.
When he says leadership, he means the governor, the president of the Senate, and the chair, and the House chair. Those are the three that drive the bus.
The speaker, yeah. Yeah, they're driving the bus. That's who you really have to influence. Other questions? Okay, so with that in mind, I had the opportunity in the fall to visit with a person, Rebecca Lewis, and Rebecca is from McPherson. She's worked extensively with McPherson schools, and she works at Circles of McPherson with families in poverty. And it struck me because how many of you have a lot of kids that live in poverty? For how many of you is that a growing number? Okay. Are those kids hard to make successful? Harder, absolutely. So we brought Rebecca in and talked to us, and we brought her today. She's going to kind of give you her background and talk about working with kids in poverty. And I got to tell you, we kind of got set back on this, didn't we, Mike? That our theory's always been better instructional strategies, more staff development, all that stuff. That may not be the best way to help those kids move in their achievement. So what we want to do today, Rebecca's just going to give you a little background, visit with you, and then lots of interaction to talk about how do we help all kids be successful. And it's really timely with this success index. I don't even have to ask. I know all of you want your kids to be successful and you want to continually improve the number of kids that are being successful. Fair statement? So Rebecca, if you want to come up, and I will give this to you.
Oh, boy.
She enjoys this part. Rebecca, give them a little background and then we'll just do some questions.
Okay, so is that, hello? Yes?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good deal. I was born in 1973 to a single mom in California. I always like to say that before I was 5 years old, I've seen more stuff than most people witness their entire lives. So my mom developed a pretty hefty heroin addiction, and some family said, hey, we want to get Becky out of there, come to Kansas, either kick the heroin or we'll take her, and you can stay out there. So mom made the best decision she could, and we moved to Kansas. And I remember the first day I got to Kansas and we were allowed to go outside and ride our bikes up and down the dirt roads. Like, in California, you can't go outside without a parent. I mean, they're hyper vigilant over what's going on in the neighborhoods and on the streets. And then like the snow came, and I remember that. I was like, oh, also fireflies. When I was a little kid, I was like, wow, I thought these were just something in Disney movies. So moving to Kansas was amazing, and it was life-changing. Family systems were different. I had an extended family that was just, I mean, they were bringing me into new and better things. McPherson, Kansas is where I grew up, and there's a lot of families in McPherson that do well. About 6th grade is when I looked around and realized I was horribly poor, and I was very ashamed, and I worked really hard to start hiding that stuff. I started to implode socially. I started to be a really big behavior problem inside of the classroom. Most teachers I looked at and thought, okay, my whole job today is to go here and make sure they cannot teach. You know, by the time I was 14, I got my first job at 13. I was having a lot of struggles at home. Of course, mom kicked a lot of things, but got no interventions, no way to help bring along her thinking, her parenting skills. So home life was crazy and it was hard. 13 years old came my first job. 14, I started looking at ways to move out. By 15, I'd rented my own trailer. By 14 years old, I was looking for my 16th birthday to drop out of school. I knew that I had to get out of there. In my freshman year, I had just started to fight teachers, fight girls. I wanted to make sure that somehow I had respect and that I felt safe, at least for me, when I went to school every day. So on my 16th birthday, I dropped out. My family called the school system and said, she's going. And they said, good, we don't want her here. She's light years ahead of the other kids and she does nothing but cause problems. I looked around my world and I thought, I want a house like those people on the other side of town. So I left state and went to go find my house on the hill. What I found was horrible addictions, a very, very abusive, crazy marriage that lasted 13 years, and a lot of instability, a lot of job changes. So at age 29, I finally found the courage and the means to leave my husband. And this is when the birth of my first child occurred. So at 29 years old, I'm a single mom. I swore I would never be a single mother. I swore I would never raise kids in poverty. And all of a sudden it was starting to happen. I looked at this infant and I was like, holy smokes, I got to do something. I enrolled in college full-time, went to work full-time, and started down that journey. I knew absolutely nothing about being a parent. I remember I would sit each day and I would look at the clock and I'd be like, holy smokes, is it time to go to work? Is it time to go to school? Because my baby just cried and I didn't know what to do about it. So I knew though that I wanted out of poverty. I knew I did not want to raise my kid like this. And I told myself a 4-year degree, that's how you do it. You have to have this 4-year degree, Rebecca. 2 more kids came, a couple more failed relationships. I was in my late 30s. So it's a decade later. And I'm at McPherson College in my senior year, and I'm still fighting every single day to figure out how to navigate this institution, to get all of my stuff turned in, to keep the lights on, to keep a car running. I had kids with severe behavior problems. I was thoroughly convinced it was because I was a horrible parent. I like to say the verdict is still out on that, but both of my oldest and my youngest have autism diagnoses now. And so I had no idea what I was dealing with, and it was just calamity. and to get my attention was really hard. I did have enough sense to I just knew if I got this 4-year degree, something was going to change. I had been frequenting a church for diapers in McPherson, and I had kind of built a relationship with the secretary. And one day I was in there and tears were just streaming down my face. And I'm like, you have no idea how much these diapers mean to what we're going through every day. And I said, I promise someday I'm going to do better. I'm going to get my kids to a better place, and I'm going to come here and give back. And she kind of pointed to a flyer about a class to get out of poverty. And my first thought was, what are these people going to teach me about poverty that I don't already know? And my next thought was, man, I've got so many diapers from this lady, I better sign up. So I was already working in a bar 5 nights a week, juggling classes. And I thought, so we started going to this thing called Circles. And I expected when I got in there that it was going to be a whole bunch of this, you know. And I wasn't met with that. I was met with love and grace and fellowship and a whole bunch of middle-class people that seemed to kind of know where I came from. And that was shocking to me. And then they gave me a whole bunch of information that empowered me. And I realized, oh my gosh, you know, all of the addictions that I went through, the alcoholism, the abuse, all these things, I can pretty much pinpoint it back to the poverty. You know, for me, I was smart. I knew stuff. But I didn't have anybody reach down into me and say, Rebecca, this is where we have to go. Honestly, I don't know if you could have. I was so headstrong and so broken and so angry. But I realized I don't want this for my kids. I need to know what middle-class people know. I need to know how to navigate their systems. And here's the thing, I better drop the rock and I better get over my judgments against them because I need them to bring me along. Whole bunch of paradigm shifts occurred for me. I couldn't believe how much my mind was blown. And the other thing I really know now is that middle-class people know very little about the strategies that families in poverty use to exist. We like to talk about middle-class values and poverty values, and I think to me that somehow seems like there's a moral compass involved in that. So I like to say middle-class strategies and poverty strategies, because wherever you are, you have to survive in middle class. So you need survival strategies to make sure that that happens and to make sure your children know how to do that. Same thing's going on in poverty. And so now here's what's cool. A few months into Circles, the coach quit. I was this close to my bachelor's degree, and I said, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. I applied for that job. They hired me. I finally walked the stage. 4-year degree, first one in my family, immediate or extended, to ever get a bachelor's degree. Today, I work with 39 families in Circles. The other thing is 2 years ago, the church called me and said, hey, Rebecca, we want you to be the outreach coordinator. So guess what? Now I'm the lady that hands out the diapers, okay? Last year, I worked 3 jobs to do this, but last year, my 3 little boys and I left economic poverty for the first time in our entire lives. So that's calculated at 200% of the federal poverty guideline. I got my mom involved in Circles, so on every Thursday night, there was 3 generations of us under that roof. At 5 years old, she came from a strong middle-class home. Divorce happened. Her world shattered. She was thrust into poverty, basically took care of herself. Mom worked a bunch of jobs, all that kind of stuff. Last year, she also left economic poverty for the first time since she was 5. So no kidding, nobody in my family is poor anymore. I mean, it's crazy. And so, but I'm on a mission. You know, I'm on a mission, and I love to work with poor moms. Honestly, what I want to share with people is that most of these kids, most of the families, when they walk in my door, they are really bringing home less than $1,000 a month earned income, and they're making those ends tie together. And when I start to help people do the math, it's no wonder we see some of the crazy stuff that we see, and these kids are freaked out. And we're learning that stress is our biggest enemy, right? And so, you know, I've been looking at a lot of studies, and I'm like, holy cow, this is what's happening. You know, I like to talk to people about, well, you know, what happens when somebody pulls out in front of us on the road? It's like scares the crap out of us, right? So that kind of releases some stuff that goes on. Well, this is happening all the time for little kids in poverty, and those pathways get really ingrained, and they're starting to realize that this isn't even developing their prefrontal cortex, and that those pathways that are so ingrained, this is why they just act up continuously, because that's a primal aggression place that we go to when we're in response. When we're in emergency response, that's primal aggression. So, you know, we've spent a lot of time on trying to develop cognitive strategies with kids, and we can't get them to behave long enough to get to where we're trying to take them. And so, you know, these non-cognitive strategies, a lot of this has to do with relationship building and trust, getting their attention so we can get them up here, we can get them to dream, we can get them where they want to go. at Circles, we track. So you talk about outcomes. I've got outcomes here from the data we did last year. We have 14 families now, but 11 families last year, 25 kids, all reached 200% of the federal poverty guideline. The return on investment for a community is almost $1 million from those 11 families. Okay, and no more free and reduced lunches. They pay the tuition fee that they're supposed to pay. Their kids have school clothes. The mom can keep a car running. Wow, right? There's still a lot of work to be done because there's all this emotional baggage. Okay. You know, and I brought these guidelines because a lot of times I bump into people who are working with this every day, but maybe they don't have access to the poverty guidelines. Okay, so, you know, I don't know if that's interesting, but remember that most of the families I'm working with, they're making less than $10,000 a year, okay? So when I see this kind of stuff, I'm like, oh man, this is a big step in the right direction. I talk to schools and I talk to, I feel really weird holding this. I'm really, is that,
We ran out, but we're getting some more printed.
I talk to people in school systems and, you know, we're like, but we got to get these kids to college. How do we get this through to them? We stop talking about college. I start talking about $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. Okay. You're a girl, we talk houses. You're a boy, we talk cars. The other thing that's happening, I think, and it's just very common, the teachers are working with these kids every day and they're so frustrated with the parents. And it's just very natural because you care about your students that you start wanting to kind of push them over here and start talking about this. The deeper the abuse, the deeper the anxiety, the deeper the stress, the tighter the bonds is with their family.
Hey, Jim.
I like to always share that I still
would you
help my
print us
parents
about
with
20
about
more of
$500 or
those?
$600 a month. I need to make sure they're okay. Okay. There's a lot of backstory that I have just made up my mind that, wow, if my mom would have got a hold of some of the stuff I had, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I've forgiven her and I just need to make sure she's okay, that my dad's okay, that they're living some type of prosperous life. Okay. So I think that one of the conversations we can have with youth whose parents are living in a camper down at the trailer park, you know, there's no water, you know all those things. Okay, let's get you to a job, not for $27,700, because when you have your first child or two, you're back in poverty. Let's get you to a job where you're okay, your unborn children are okay, and your parents are okay. And we start having these conversations with kids. And we start looking at this. Okay, so do you know there's a bunch of kids that cannot go to college, they cannot cope there, we don't have those support systems in place, they will not be successful. I talked to JB Hunt here a while back, and they told me, do you guys know how many recruiters JB Hunt has? 500 recruiters that they employ each year. They've got freight showing up constantly. Nobody can pick it up because they don't have drivers. Those jobs start at $47,000, $50,000 a year. Okay, and it's like a 5 to 6 week class to get people their CDL and get them on the road with benefits, with the 401k. So we have to think of places that we can take these kids. It's well over 27,000, right? So we mine into these kids, into their parents for gifts and talents, and we start really just getting very intentional about where they're going to go.
Rebecca, I want to ask you a question. When you spoke to us, you talked about if you want to improve achievement, don't focus on achievement.
So we were in a pretty intimate conversation with some teachers that are on the ground. They're in a master's program and they're really trying to look at things in new ways. Okay, so that they're doing the work. And what I found was that, so I like to tell this story, the power of a relationship, the power of fighting for a kid. You know, when we think of The Blind Side and we think of Michael Orr and we think he had this family, they cared about him, they were probably going to push him into some sort of success from that. But they had him on this football field because they're like, you're big, you should be able to do this. He's out there, he's showing up, and you know, the coach that night though, that the coach said, hey, this is like one of my kids, I will fight for him. All of a sudden something happened to Michael, right? He looked at the coach, he said, I've got this. And he started playing football. I honestly believe Michael Orr, because of the family he had in place, would have probably been successful at something. I don't think if that coach hadn't have experienced that moment with Michael, Michael would be playing football today. So, you know, just the power of a relationship and fighting for these kids. But when we've got kids who are not developed up here and their parents are not developed up here, and we're constantly trying to take them here, first we have to get them safe. We have to get them to trust us. We have to make them want to work hard for us, because the things that are huge about poverty is they're generous, they're loyal. And as soon as you can tap into that stuff, it doesn't matter what you want to do, they'll do it just for you. This is how the Circles model works. We match families with middle-class allies. I was matched with a middle-class ally, and they make us set all these goals. I'm not really a goal-oriented person. But because my ally would show up for me every week and she would take me out to coffee and spend time with me, I was meeting those goals so I could report to her and let her know that I was doing that. It was about 6 months into that I started to set my own goals and do it for me. Very strange phenomenon to me. But our teachers, they care about the kids. They care. They love them. They think, and I heard this repetitively, but it's my job to help them get out of poverty. We have to have them succeed. And I'm like, but you will spend all of your energy and time fighting them to succeed, but you could sidestep that and not worry about that right now. And let's just invest in them and build them up and work on some other non-cognitive things with them. And they will start to achieve naturally once the supports are in place and they have the guidance. I was told you guys were a tough bunch.
What questions do you have? What's going through your heads?
So these, how do people in poverty become aware of this circles program? And then when they get there, what do they see? What happens that first night or the first several nights?
Okay, so like they're made aware through word of mouth. Sometimes you can kind of market it, but it's really hard. You guys know that it's difficult to market to families in poverty. It's difficult to reach them. A lot of it's done through word of mouth. And so somehow they get there and I'll tell you what, they're freaked out. They don't trust. They've got, so, I mean, if we can all be really honest with each other, most all of us have class prejudice. I did. So the families in poverty, we hear that, we hear about this us and them kind of talk. We do it too. It's us and it's you guys. And so that's very natural to have that natural feeling of us and them. We don't like to talk about it in America. We don't want to admit it exists, but it's real. So they come the first night and there's childcare and there's a meal and there's people. And generally the kids are having a lot of behavior problems in the beginning. And that's normal. They will line out. So they're met with this community of support and then they kind of get a hold of a curriculum that starts to help them think about poverty in a different way, a non-threatening way. And there's usually what happens when you go to a circles evening, most outsiders will come in and they're like, we're not really sure who the poor people are and who the middle class people are. So it's very cool. Everybody's there together. They're engaged. It's true community work.
Other questions?
I just have a comment, and we had a woman in Pratt who heard Rebecca speak, and because of this woman and Rebecca, I'm now serving on the board. We have a board and we are implementing this program in Pratt. And I didn't get to hear you speak, but I appreciate what you said today. And I'm working with our school counselors because we are trying to identify circle leaders.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing journey for you guys. The first 2 years, it's just really hard work. You learn a lot, you make a lot of mistakes. That's just kind of the way this work works. But then you start to have these payoffs and it's huge. And you'll be so proud and you'll get a whole bunch of inside information from those families that you've been wanting, but nobody would tell it to you. And that's what they do. They come to the table and they start to open up and say, here's our perspective and here's why this happens. That's like golden.
You talk about a little bit about the length of time for that session one, and then if they move into the second phase, talk about the ally program.
So in McPherson, and every Circles community does it different. The interesting thing about Circles is it is a grassroots national organization, but for some reason, Kansas has more sites than anywhere else in the country. It's really cool. So we have a state association and we're all gleaning from each other and kind of in this ride together. There's a lot of states that just have one. And so, but when a family comes and we assess them, are they 6 months clean and sober? They can't be homeless, defined as living in a car under a bridge. And if they've got severe mental health diagnoses, we ask that they have some kind of treatment in place for that. Other than that, if they want to come, that's great. Let's work on this stuff. So they sign up, they come for 18 weeks for a class. There's a graduation. And then we want them to stay for 18 more months. And at that point, that's when they're matched with middle-class allies. A lot of times as a coach, I figure out who the allies are, what they bring to the table, what the circle leaders are struggling with, what their barriers are, where they may want to go. And we kind of connect like that. And so then they stay for 18 months to 5 years to get completely and totally out of poverty. The families change and the children change. It's a cool trip to watch all this happen. And you see these kids and you're thinking, oh my gosh, we've lost 3 childcare workers over this one kid. And then in 6 months, that kid is helping other children, so
Bill?
Am I correct? There's a group here in Reno County, Hutchinson area? Okay, thought so.
Yeah, there is, with Jim Unruh.
Rebecca, my question is though, Reno County, McPherson, Pratt's large enough. What do we do at Stafford and Kinsley?
You know, we have to start thinking about some of these things together. And that's why when I've been brought into Essdack, I'm super excited to begin piecing puzzle pieces together and figuring out, okay, so we don't have a circles community. We don't have parents engaged, but we've got our hands on their children inside of the school system. How do we empower these teachers, number one, with more information? Every single group of teachers I've talked to, they've got so many questions that nobody can answer for them. And I think a lot of times they're ashamed to even ask them. I love to connect those dots for teachers. And also, I've watched with my kids with IEPs, and I see every time we come out of a project stay meeting, my teacher is stacked. His teacher is stacked with more work. Like, who's going to help her do all this? You know? And so I've also kind of seen that side of it on the other side. One of the first things that I do with each group of teachers is I give them an email address and a phone number, and I say, I want to be your ally. I want to answer those tough questions for you that, you know, with these kids in your classroom and the parents and the things that you see. I want to help you like they helped me find my way here. And so, and then, you know, we have to get, if we really want to get this accomplished here with kids, and it won't always be this way, but once we can get their parents' attention, regardless if they're all the things that, all the coping strategies. So it's a lot of addictions and abuse and all of those kind of things, people not working. If we can just get their attention and help them with a few coaching strategies to get their kids into thinking about long-term and realizing that it will not hurt you to lose your child. It will help your family system if your child can make it out. And so we just start to have those conversations, because once I get the parents thinking in a new direction, once I was thinking in a new direction, I turn around to my kids and we're talking all the time about where they're going. They're going straight to college. They're supposed to find a wife at college. They're supposed to have a house after they have college, and the baby comes very last. You know, and they've seen mom do everything wrong. And I tell them, these people that do it like me aren't bad people. We just made really hard mistakes that I don't want you guys to go through. And so, but they know, I mean, they can rattle it off to you. What are you supposed to be doing? We got to graduate high school, blah, blah, blah. And I told them, and I've got 2 with autism. I don't care what you're dealing with. I don't care what you're facing. I don't care, because you have this, I expect more from you. And so, you know, but honestly, 5 years ago, I was telling my kids, don't you dare say what's happening in the home to the school system. Don't you dare tell them we got our lights shut off. They will take you from me. This is what you guys are up against with parents. We are terrified of you. The poorer we are, the more scared we are of you, and we see you as the bad guy, and we tell our kids that don't talk to these people. So the kids are in a constant state of tension anyways with what's going on, and they love their teachers. They can't tell their teachers because they're selling out their mom, right? So there's a whole lot of stuff that we can talk about and do on those kind of things to give teachers coping strategies to kind of get through to that. And really, honestly, when do you have your hands on these parents? It's a parent-teacher conferences, right? And so, you know, there's just some simple things that we can do to start to get these parents to feel comfortable and see us as a person who really does care about not just the kid, but the parents and the unborn child. I mean, that's how I like to look at this work. It truly is generational. So
The whole idea about how could we get started? You know, everyone in this room has lots of kids in poverty, and I'm guessing lots of people in this room don't know what to do about it. Well, how do we get started?
You know, I think for me, getting inside of each community and figure out what you're facing, listening to your teachers, and kind of, you know, just really fine-tuning something for each community. But when are we going to start? So if it's a school system's responsibility to pull this off, when are we going to incentivize somehow, okay, if I can get my parents to go through something called getting ahead in a school system, because somehow it benefits their kids to do this, you know, and because like I said, once we get some traction with the parents and we get the parents on a different path and we get them there through incentives, okay, that's how you get them there. Incentivize the kids. In McPherson, we do a stipend. We pay parents to go through getting ahead. That's replicated all across the country. How do you get poor people at the table? Well, you pay them, and you pay them because they're the experts on poverty in your community. It's also a good way to keep them there and have good attendance. But, you know, once we get traction with the parents or with the caregivers through this model that teaches them about poverty at a nationwide scale and what it does to kids, then we start having conversations and, oh, you know what happened to the kid? No longer are you guys the enemy. They see you as a solution. And when the kid goes home, there's a plan from the parents that's working in conjunction with the teachers. And so that's just one strategy to start making movement. It's slow work, but the circles model about getting these parents to the table. Am I just loud enough for all of you guys already?
We may have some virtual people though that couldn't hear you.
Virtual people. Hello. So yeah, I mean, there's some amazing strategies. What do we do? Because the Circles Initiative, our budget is about $120,000 a year. There's communities, and we can't go from a school system and say, we need something. It has to come up. Like Pratt, that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. You guys had everybody at the table to begin with. Most of the time, it erupts from a small corner, and then you're just trying to drag people in. So that was a really good way to start that model. You know, Project 17, that is Southeast Kansas. Okay, so they've got 17 counties in Southeast Kansas now. And so that's just starting that initiative. So hopefully we'll continue to just expand in Kansas, and then maybe we'll all have a Circles community and we'll start to figure things out like that. But we do need to think about these communities that have no resources like that. And things have been going on for a long time and a lot of generations.
You know, last week, Mike and I worked with a service center in Des Moines. And, you know, when you have a 6-hour drive coming home, you have lots of time to talk. We were talking about kids in poverty. They're dealing with the same thing, rural schools. Their immediate response was, we need more professional development for instructional strategies. That's been our natural response to, we've got a group of kids that aren't learning. It's got to be our instructional strategies. And we had a long talk with them, and we may be sending Rebecca to Des Moines, a lovely drive, I might add. And, but it's, you know, if we're going to really get kids to be successful, we've got to step back and look at the problems differently and the solutions differently. Other questions, comments? So what we've done with Rebecca is we will book her with you. So if you want her to speak with your teachers, work with you, your leadership, your board, your community, you can book her through us. So it's one-stop shop, and we're helping her with all that. We would love to have her come out and work with your schools. She's already visited with our whole staff and with our specialists. We're going to start making a real effort with our specialists. There's more than instructional strategies to this. There's more than just instructional strategies. And, you know, we're like you. We want all of our kids to be successful. So, again, we want you to be level 5 and see this as an opportunity to do good things for kids. Other questions, comments?
Steve, I have just a few slots left on the hands-on physics. Some of you know I got 1 of 3 training grants across the country for hands-on physics. The national trainers will be here next Tuesday and Wednesday. There hasn't been professional development for physics teachers in state of Kansas for several years. That really, the hands-on with probes and everything. I also got a discount on the probes. You get $814 worth of things for $510. So I don't know how much better I can do for you. So see me if you want to get a physics teacher in my program next week.
Other comments, questions? If not, Mike, you're back in charge.
Thank you guys very much.
What did we miss?
You want to do your updates, or do you want to?
I'll just keep them real quick. Facility-wise, we're finalizing some drawings on all the remodel and the addition of the space. So we'll get that stuff probably a week or two. Cleela shared that stuff. Cody, in our marketing department, we're starting to clean up a bunch of databases for communication issues. So you'll probably get soon an email that may come to you as superintendents, but I wanted to let you know this. We're not trying to do an end run on you. It's going to be asking for contact information in your districts with like principals and elementary principals and then teachers, and we're going to build that out. We just got to get it cleaned up. And so, you know, it may go to your clerk or something. So, but we just want you to know we're looking at cleaning up our data.
And we will make all that available to all of you.
Yeah, once we get it all set, then you can access that stuff also. And then the final thing, food management. That's been a big topic, kind of growing. we got a notice from the State Department that they do have the RFP template revised and ready to go. And if you haven't got that, I have it. I can send it out to you. But the better part of that is, you know, this is new territory for me as a district. How does it work? All that. Suzanne has been gracious enough that if you need information on that, or if there's anybody else that's doing that, please contact her to find out how that works, quality-wise, financially, was a better service, etc. Because the last I heard, there's many more companies now coming online with the state trying to get that bidding process going, and it's managed food services. There it is. There it is. So last thing, we do have the listening tour from the KSDE. We'll be here at 1 o'clock, and I think it goes till 3. And so Brad and Dr. Watson, and I think there's somebody else coming. Anyway, they're in Salina right now. I imagine they're on their way down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you, we're going to call this to a halt, and we have to clear this room, clean it, not clean it like in sweeper, but me pick up cups, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to reset it to hold about 100 people. So we hope everybody will come back, because this is important for the state to get the opinions of everybody. So 1 o'clock, that'll start, and it'll be in this room. Hope to see you. Anybody have questions or concern? Craig, we never gave you the floor. Anything from Wichita State?
I don't think there's anything earth-shattering. I do, again, want to thank those of you who've been helping with the district license program in terms of mentoring. A number of you will probably be called this semester for the acting as a secondary mentor. So the time that you give over the phone to some of my students, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Super, thanks.
Does anybody from who graduate from Wichita State need a challenge coin? I have a challenge coin with me. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Let's do it to them before they do it to us. All right. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you at 1 o'clock.